श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव सर्वं मम देवदेव। श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तिसुदेशिकेन्द्रं द्वैपायनं सूत्रकृतं मुनीन्द्रं श्रीशङ्करं भाष्यकृतं यतीन्द्रं मद्देशिकञ्चापि नमामि विद्यै। ॐ नमो ब्रह्मादिभ्यो ब्रह्मविद्यासम्प्रदायकर्तृभ्यो वंशऋषिभ्यो महद्भ्यो नमो गुरुभ्यः। सर्वोपप्लवरहितप्रज्ञानगणः प्रत्यगर्तो ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि। Pranams everyone. So as part of this introduction to Vedanta, we first saw how difficult it is to, or how rare it is to get a human birth. And then human pursuits were all classified into four: Artha, Kama, Dharma and Moksha. And our Shastras say that of all the human pursuits, the moksha is the most important one. That should be the primary pursuit. Artha, Kama, Dharma should be intermediary goals. And to achieve each of these goals, our culture has got what is known as the Shastras. So Shastras, we saw that there are 6 layers of Shastras, and basically the Shastras help us to understand all these goals and how to attain these goals. And in the first layer of the Shastras, we saw that the first layer of the Shastras was Vedas. And when we say Vedas, we are talking about Vedas being the primary source of knowledge of all these Purusharthas. And the author of Vedas is none other than the Ishvara himself. These were already in the sound waves, were available as sound waves. The Rishis have been able to perceive these mantras, and they have been able to pass this on from generation to generation. So any Veda is known as, all the Vedas are called as mantras. So when we say mantras, it only means Vedas. And we saw that the Vedas were divided into 4. So at the beginning of Kali Yuga, Veda Vyasa divided the Vedas into 4: Rig, Yajur, Sama and Atharvana. Because the Vedas were huge in volume, in terms of the text, it was just too much for one person to memorize and take it to the next generation. Previously, in the other yugas, there were one person who everybody had to learn all the 4 Vedas. But at the onset of Kali Yuga, Veda Vyasa said that the present human population may not be able to do that, and therefore he had split it into 4. And he had assigned 4 rishis to actually take that Vedas forward, and they have to pass it on to the next generation as a Guruparampara. So Rig was given to Bainar, Rishi Bainar. And at that time there used to be 21 shakas. Shakas means branches. So within Vedas there used to be, every Veda had a lot of branches in it. You can say branches meaning topics or whatever. So they were called as shakas. There were 21 shakas earlier. Now we probably have only one, which is still being taught to the next generation. Yajur Veda was huge, and that was assigned to Vaishamparayana, Rishi called Vaishamparaya. And again, in the case of Yajur Veda, there were 101 shakas earlier. Now we have only 3. Then Sama Veda was assigned to Jaimini Rishi, and Samaveda had 1000 shakas then. Now we have only about 2 complete shakas, and the third shaka has got only 1 or 2 persons who you can actually know about that shaka. Even probably that is not there now. And Atharvana Veda was assigned to Sumantu Rishi. Again, it had 11 shakas earlier. Now Atharvana Veda is so difficult to find. Probably in terms of persons itself, you can only get about 2 or 3 people, a few people only who can actually know only 1 shaka out of the 11. So Vedas have been actually at the onset of Kali Yuga, during this Kali Yuga, it has gone through some kind of deterioration in terms of the ability to take it to the next generation. And that reason being, the education system has changed, and we had some invasions from foreign nations, and that has actually created issues in our education system and the way it was actually transferred from one generation to another generation. There will be a recording which will be given. I don't want to repeat because there are too many things and there are so many things to be said again. So please listen to the recording in case if you have missed out anything on the class in live. Okay, now while doing this Vedas, there are also certain other things that have to be understood, learnt as part of this curriculum. When people were sent to Patashalas to learn Vedas, other than actually learning or memorizing whatever is there in the Vedas, they had to know what is known as Shiksha. Shiksha meaning the phonetics. So when something has to be pronounced, how it has to be pronounced, they have to learn through that. And then they had to learn Chandas, because Chandas means poetic meters. So Vedas would have to be chanted in a specific meter. For example, the Savitri mantra is chanted using Gayatri Chandas, but we call that as Gayatri mantra. Actually, the mantra name is Savitri mantra. The meter that is used is actually Gayatri Chandas. So there are different Chandas. So how to pronounce that is Shiksha. How to actually give that, the form of sentences, how to actually chant that mantra itself in full is called as Chandas. Then you had the grammar, Vyakarana, because you had to know the Vyakarana, because when you are actually splitting these words or when you are actually joining words, there are some rules, grammar rules you will have to follow. So the people would have to learn Vyakarana also. Then Nirukta, etymology has to be learnt, because every word will have a root based on which the meaning would have to be derived. Because one word can have multiple meanings, and you will have to understand the root behind it to understand what the meaning is at the context. And then there is also, as part of this curriculum, they had to learn Kalpa also. Kalpa is the rituals that has to be followed. So when the mantras are being actually chanted, what sort of rituals that have to be followed, that also has to be learned. And then finally, as part of Vedas itself, there was some text called Jyotisha, which covers the astrology and astronomy. So these 6, Shiksha, Chandas, Vyakarana, Nirukta, Kalpa and Jyotisha, are also called as Veda Angas, the 6 limbs of Vedas. So the body of the Veda is the mantra itself, which is available in the 4 Vedas. But you have to understand the limbs of this Veda to have a full picture. So now the question that came out last class was, how was it actually taught, and how was it this Veda mantras did not go through any change from that time to this time. So what our ancestors had done to ensure that there is no deterioration, or there is no change in the way it has to be pronounced, or no change in the mantras, they evolved certain methods to include chanting, practicing the chant, memorizing, and to actually move that from one generation to another. So they had devised a method so that there could be no error creeping in. Even not even a single letter or the pronunciation would change, because they had developed a sort of a foolproof method. And the Veda mantras had actually 3 swarams. One was the flat one, which was called a swaritam. Then you have udattam, anudattam, and dirgha swaritam as well. So all this was done to ensure that there is no dilution of the effect of mantras over a passage of time. Is these methods. And every mantra, when it has to be pronounced, when it has to be chanted, there was also a time given. The matra, they used to say, the timing. So each mantra will have to be chanted for a particular time. And certain others were double mantras, so you will have to elongate the mantra itself. So all these things were actually fitted in. The mantra itself had these things, and the method, which I am going to explain soon, will help in ensuring that there is no change in the way it was pronounced from, say, any place or at any time. So whatever is being chanted in north will be the same as whatever is chanted in down south in India. And similarly, whatever was chanted about, say, 200, 300 years ago is the same thing that is being chanted even today. And how they do it is basically, each mantra is something like a sentence. So that sentence will have that chandas, the meter, how to pronounce that, how to chant that sentence. Then the sentence itself had got words in it. And the words itself will have aksharas or letters. So we know that similar to any other language, so you have sentences, words, and aksharas or letters. So what they did was, they devised a method in which the same mantra, the same sentence is chanted in a different manner, in 4 or 5 different manners, so that you are able to remember it. Different order or different set of patterns. Same mantra with different set of patterns, so that the original pattern gets etched in a person's memory deeply. So it doesn't, one person will not forget it. And that was, and the set patterns are called as Vakyam, Padam, Kramam, Jatai. And then you have Mala, Shika, Reka, Dvajam, Dandam, Ratam. But finally you should also know as something called as Ganam. So I'll just pick out a few and then try to explain how it has been done. It's very high level I'm going to do. But this will give you an idea of what sort of what sort of thing was in place to ensure that there is no loss of words, aksharas, swaras when it was transferred from one generation to another generation. And it was all done in a very structured manner. So to learn the Vedas, what they did was, first they sort of split the sentence into words, and that each portion is called as a pada padam, they will say pada. So that is the first way to do it. First, correctly separating each sentence, and you will have to use the grammar to ensure that the sentence is properly split. And then they chanted and they made the students learn that pada padam. Then they did a krama padam. Krama padam is the next stage. What happened was, the first word will be added to the second word, and then the second word to the third word. So you have 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6 and so on. So people will not now forget. And when you are doing this 1, 2, 2, 3, again the grammatical rules, the phonetics, all this would have to be taken into consideration. And then the jata was even more difficult. In the jata padam, what they did was, the first with the second, then the second with the first again, then second with the third, and then the third with the second, and so on. So one sentence, if it has got, say, 4 words. It would be like 1, 2, 2, 1, 1, 2, and then 2, 3, 3, 2, 2, 3, and then 3, 4, 4, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 4. Like that, they had to chant. And not only chant, they would have to memorize that also. Because in those days it was not written also. It was had to be put in the mind. It had to be memorized. It had to be fully by-hearted. And that is actually a difficult way to remember, learn and remember. But people went through the grind. There were a lot of Jata Vallabar. A person who had completed this stage is known as a Jata Vallabar. And then you had Shikapadam. Then you had finally Ganapadam. Ganapadam is the most complicated. And the Ganapadam you had 1, 2, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3. So there is numbers keep jumbling, but there is a set mathematical pattern based on which this was learnt. Now the thing is with Ganapadam, it is when we listen, we can make out that it is chanting the Veda in a very structured way. We know that it is a structured way, and we may not even understand the mental gymnastics that are involved in actually even chanting this, but it will be a very pleasant experience to just listen to a Ganapati. So Ganapati has to be really appreciated because he has done deep study of the Vedas. So even for us to sort of explain this and understand this is difficult. Imagine the teacher and the student who will have to learn and memorize the whole Vedas, how much they would have to put in as efforts. So we will have to appreciate that. And why it was done? Because the Vedas was for universal benefit. It was not for somebody to make them look like a scholar. It is not for that. The Vedas have been preserved by our ancestors so that it is for the welfare of humankind, or welfare not just for the humankind, it is for the welfare of the entire universe, not just for the humans. So it is just like something very secret, very special, something like a secret say medicine, which is very rare and can save lives. Suppose you actually make sure that you store that formula, you safeguard the formula. Similarly, the Vedas are so important, and therefore our ancestors knew that it is so powerful and so important. It is needed for the whole world, and it will benefit for all the life forms. So they devised these means of study and this structure to ensure that people are able to memorize these Vedas while ensuring that there is no deviation from the pronunciation. Because the pronunciation is very important, because at the end of the day, Vedas are mantras, which are sound waves which are necessary for creating the right outcome. So the pronunciation is very important. So that is in short about Vedas. That is the first layer of our Shastras. And just to remember that this is only the first layer, and this itself is vast. Now we go to the second layer. The second set of literature is known as Sutras. Sutras literally means capsule. Sutra means a capsule, nutshell. So the sutra consists of the same Vedic teachings, whatever there is in the Vedas, they were all codified form. Because the Vedas were all, it's all random stuff sometimes. It is not properly structured because it is coming from the various sound waves. Each Rishi has been able to capture that and has been able to put together things. But it may not be in a structured and a codified form. So what happens is the sutras came on, and the sutras were basically the codification or clarification of the Vedic teaching itself. So they classified and they rearranged and they prepared capsules. Because the Vedas, as I said, is a vast literature. Several topics are strewn all over. Same topic could be found in different places, all in an unorganized manner. So the sutra literature pulled them all together and it arranged in a topic wise. So, for example, all the individual duties, values, responsibilities, we call that as Dharma Sutrani. So, that sutras will contain everything that is available in the Vedas in a codified, structured manner, which is related to the individual values, duties, and responsibilities. Similarly, there is something called as Grihya Sutrani, which contains all the family values, family responsibilities, and others. Because individual responsibilities are different, family responsibilities are different. So you have two different sutras. Then you have Shrauta Sutrani, which talks about bigger activities, like for the welfare of society, what should a person do? How should the king be? All the Shrauta Sutrani is also there. And that deals with all the big prayers that people have to do, rituals, functions, not for individual well-being, but for the universal well-being. So these sutras, we don't say that these are not apaurishayam. These are not from God directly or Ishvara directly. These are sutra literature written by several rishis. So you have Gautama Sutrani, you have Apastamba Sutrani, you have Parasara Sutrani, you have Bodhayana Sutrani. So there are so many examples. So the word there may not be the exact words as what you find in the Vedic literature or Vedas, but the content would be only from the Vedas. They wouldn't have gone anywhere outside. So any kind of clarification, if people want to get it directly from the Vedas, would be difficult because it's so unorganized. So they will refer the sutras. And if there are, even in the Vedas, if there are certain things that are vague, people will go to the sutras to get that clarified. And what seems to be like seeming contradictions within the Vedas also, we go to sutras. And which is the most important sutra, we will say? We say Brahma Sutra, will say. Brahma Sutra is the most difficult, because they say, sometimes when they say, if the subject is very difficult, they will say, is this a Brahma Sutra? Then a Brahma Sutra ma, they will say. Because that sutra is seeming contradictions in the Vedas with regards to the eternal truth has been codified and clarified in the Brahma Sutras. And Brahma Sutra was also written by Vedavyasa. So the Sutram also has got another meaning called thread. So basically this literature is called as thread because it threads the topics contained in the Vedas. So that is the second layer of literature called sutras. Then the third layer is called as smriti. Smriti means remembered. At the beginning of the class, I normally chant Shruti Smriti Purananam. I say Shruti is Vedas, Smriti is this. Smriti means the remembered. Again, the Smritis are generally in a form of a poem. So it has got a metrical literature. And as I said, it's remembered. So it's remembered wisdom. What happens is, the rishis study the Vedas, the rishis study the sutras also, and having gathered all the teachings from the Shrutis and the sutras, they again present it in a elaborate form. So again, this is also for a codification and clarification only. And thousands and thousands of verses will be there in each smriti. And it has been written by many rishis again. So you have Parashara, we have Parashara Smriti, you have Yajnavalkya Smriti, and then the most important one, which is probably most of us would have come to know, the Manu Smriti. So if you take a book, Smriti book, and you see the topics, you will see that actually it's all very properly arranged. It's got a perfect structure. So, for example, they will talk about cosmology. They will say how the creation arose. So that will be a set of series of topics. And then you have duties and goals of life, and they would have the duties and goals of life split by different societal persons. So for example, you have student, what should be, or householder, what should it be, citizen of a country, what should be the duties, roles and responsibilities. If you are a male, what are your roles and responsibilities, duties? If you are a female, what are your roles and responsibility, duties? So they would have clarified that, and they would have written it in lengthy, elaborate form. The Shruti is unorganized. The Sutras are cryptic, because Sutras are in a capsule form, so they are cryptic. Therefore, the Smriti will actually elaborate the Sutras and also remove the seeming vagueness that you might get in the Sutras. So the Smriti will actually elaborate and also give some clarity. Because the Sutras in the Vedas, some of the ideas may be very implicit, and that will be made very explicit in the Smritis. So this is the third layer of literature, which is also called as Smriti Grantaha. And again, this is also, as I said, this is also Paurusheya Sastram. This is also coming from Rishis. Only the Vedas are Apaurusheyam. So here again, the composition is human, but the content is still divine. It has not come from, it is not their own understanding, or they would not actually add anything there. All the Rishis would have based their explanation only on what has been said in the Vedas. So we have seen three now: Shrutis or Vedas, Sutras, and the third one is Smritis. Now the fourth one is Puranas. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam. So the Puranas are again a literature in a further expanded form. So here it is much more magnified than a Smriti also. Purana means ancient literature, which is relevant even today. It is ancient but not obsolete. It is still relevant in today. So the Purana, if we actually split the word Purana, it is actually Pura Api Navaha. Pura Api Navaha, ancient and ever fresh, ever new, ever relevant, even for the 21st century. Again, the Puranas is in the form of poems only, and they also codify, clarify, magnify the topics that are there in the Vedic teachings. So for example, you have this abstract ideas, like and those ideas are actually presented in the form of stories in Puranas. For example, we will take only one value given in the Vedas, and that is probably highlighted in the form of a story, and that is presented in thousands of verses. For example, you have Harishchandra Purana. Harishchandra Purana is, the essence of that story is only one sentence in Veda: Satyam Vada, speak the truth. That is elaborated. Similarly, you have Pitru Devo Bhava. Your father is your Bhagavan or Ishvara. That is elaborated in the story of a Nachiketa. So abstract things, they are concretized, they are symbolized in the form of beings. For example, in Bhagavata Purana, you have Kama, Krodha, Ahankara, all these things. Kama is desire, Krodha is anger, Ahankara is that ego. All these things are depicted as Rakshasas. So abstract ideas are personified, and then explained in the form of a story, so that we are able to understand the underlying content. So in the Puranas, language of symbolism is used. So again, Purana is concretization, symbolization, personification and magnification of the same ideas what are there in the Vedas. But the impact of the teaching will be intense, because here you are only focusing on one or two ideas and then trying to elaborate on it. So these Puranas again most of these Puranas have been written by Vyasacharya himself. Vedavyasa has written most of the Puranas. There are 18 Puranas in our literature, and 18 Puranas running in thousands and thousands of verses. And then apart from these 18 Puranas, there are 18 Upa Puranas also, running again in thousands and thousands of verses. The most popular Purana we know is Bhagavata Purana. But other than that, you have Agni Purana, Brahma Purana, Garuda Purana, Kurma Purana, Linga Purana, Matsya Purana. There are 18. So available in Wikipedia. So you can check on Wiki also in terms of what are these Puranas. And then there are 18 Upa Puranas also. That is also again lot of stories there. So you can check. So there are countless of literature when it comes to Shastras. And still the Shastras we haven't completed all the 6 layers, we have only completed 4. Then the 5th layer is Itihasas. Itihasas means history based literature. So the contents of Itihasa is based on what happened really then, and it is derived from the word iti. Iti means thus or in this way. Ha means definitely, doubtlessly, without any question. Asa means it occurred, it happened, it took place. So Itihasa means thus, doubtlessly, it happened. So in the Puranas that we had seen before, there could be some real characters like Harishchandra, Nachiketa are real characters, and there will be some amount of, as I said, personification of certain things. So there could be a mixture there between fact and some amount of concepts which are given some which are personified. But in the case of Itihasas, it is just as what it happened. Again, the Itihasas are in the form of poems also, and we have only 2 Itihasas. One is Ramayana, the other one is Mahabharata. Both of it, so no question of whether it was mythology or whether it was fiction, nothing like that. Both Ramayana and Mahabharata were real historical happenings. Ramayana was originally written by Valmiki. It consists of 24,000 verses. And Mahabharata again written by Vedavyasa, Vyasacharya, and it consists of 1 lakh verses. Okay, so that is Itihasas. That is the 5th layer. The last layer is 6th, and the final layer is Bhashyas. Bhashyas means commentaries. So it refers to the commentaries written in Sanskrit or Samskrita for all the above forms of literature. So you have Bhashyas on Vedas or Upanishads, then you have Bhashyas on Sutras, then you have some Bhashyas on Smritis also. So there are countless commentaries. on Vedas, Sutras, even Itihasas. So you have Bhashyas, commentaries on Valmiki, Ramayana. You have commentaries on Vyasacharya's Mahabharata. So all these are called as Bhashyas. Then you have sub-commentaries. So somebody would have written commentary on a commentary that was written for an Itihasa. And then you have sub-commentaries also. So people have spent a lot of time in terms of understanding our culture and the knowledge that is available within these. And commentaries are needed, because only through the commentaries we will be able to unlock what we want to learn. Otherwise, when we go into the Vedas directly, we will not be able to understand. If you want to go to Vedas and find answers, we are not qualified enough to get the answers. Or even to a sutra to understand would be difficult. If I take a Brahma Sutra and try to understand, it will be very difficult. Even some Manusmriti, some people do an exact translation and then try to say this is what Manusmriti says, without even understanding the context or the proper understanding of those words. So it is not easy to learn these things on our own. If we start doing it, we will develop misunderstandings, and that misunderstandings would lead to some negative opinion only. So what is the key to unlocking this? Key to unlock this is basically, it is called as Sampradaya. Sampradaya. There is a method of opening or unlocking all this literature, all this knowledge. And that is Sampradaya, which is a Guru Sishya Parampara. It has to be coming from a qualified person who has understood the same thing from his Guru, who has understood from his Guru, As we say in chanting, Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. We will have to go through this parampara. We do not recommend any Western translations written on our literature, especially by Western people or Western educated Indians. Because if what they do is they just simply go to the Sanskrit dictionary and they write the meaning. In every word, Sanskritam is so difficult because each word will have multiple meanings depending on the context. And then depending on that, you have Vakyartha and Lakshyartha. What is the word meaning and what is the context meaning also. So to understand that is not easy. For example, the word Atma in Bhagavad Gita appears many times. And the same word Atma could mean different things in different places. Atma could mean Paramatma in some places. It could mean Jivatma in some places. It could mean mind in some places. It could mean body in some places, depending on the context. So it's not easy it's not proper to do a word by word translation and trying to understand the meaning, or to go to a Western translation of our literature. So what we have to do is to, using this Sampradaya, we will have to go to our traditional Acharyas. We will have to understand the written Bhashyas. We have to go to the Vyakhyana Granthas. So these in the form of prose and verse, and then we try to understand that. So these 6 layers put together are called Shastram. And as I said, what is the purpose of this Shastra? The purpose of the Shastra is, as I said, to start with, it is help us achieve the Purusharthas. Achieve Purusharthas. What are the Purusharthas? Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Swami Chinmayananda used to say, when somebody used to say, we have other some of the religions will say we have our book as a scripture. So there is one book for them. Most of the religions have one book as their scripture. Whereas for us, it is a library. It's a vast, vast library. It is not just one book. Our combined knowledge of our civilization is so profound, so vast, that it cannot be contained in one book. And to read this, it cannot be done in one birth, one janma, even if we put full time. That is the amount of vastness that we have in our Shastras. So this, just wanted to give a understanding of what is Shastra. When we say Shastram, what does that mean? And within this Shastra, especially when it comes to Vedanta, so within this Shastras, where is Vedanta? We already saw that the Veda Purva Bhaga is Karma Kanda, the Veda Anta Bhaga is Vedanta, which talks about Jnana Kanda, or the knowledge about self. It gives the knowledge about self. And when it comes to this Vedanta, we say Prasthana Trayam. There are three pillars of Vedanta that we have to refer to. The first one is, foremost one is the Vedas. So the Vedas are the Shruti Prasthanam, our source of knowledge. The second is, comes out of Itihasa. One Itihasa is Mahabharata. Within Mahabharata we have got Bhagavad Gita. So that is our Smriti Prasthanam. Why do we say Smriti Prasthanam? Because it comes out of Veda Vyasa. Veda Vyasa has written it, so we call it as a Smriti. But having said that Veda Vyasa has written, because Bhagavad Gita has come out of Bhagavan Krishna himself. So it is accorded almost a Shruti equivalence, because it has come from Bhagavan directly, although it was written by Veda Vyasa. So second one is Bhagavad Gita. The third one is Brahma Sutra. So Brahma Sutra is Nyaya Prasthana, we say. That is written by again Veda Vyasa, and that actually explains the seeming contradictions that are there in Vedas with regards to the understanding of self, the universe, and Ishvara. So who am I? Who is Ishvara? What is this world? That is the understanding that we have to have. In fact, when I started this class, I said we have the end of the class, at the end of the series, we should be able to understand who am I, who is Ishvara, what is the purpose of this life, what is this world about. And though those things are already explained in the Vedas, but there could be, because it is all unstructured and all over the place, there could be seeming contradictions. Those have been clarified in the Brahma Sutra. So that is the Shastras. So just to quickly run through the 6 things. Primary literature, the only primary literature is Vedas. The remaining 5 are all secondary literature. The primary literature is Vedas. These are transmitted by Ishvara or Bhagavan using rishis as a medium. Four of them, Rig, Yajur, Sama and Atharvana. This was codified by Veda Vyasa. Then the secondary literature, you have Sutras. Sutras basically codify the contents of Vedas again, but in a structured manner. You have these duties of individuals, societal duties, all these things. And these are actually, because it is in a capsule form, it is easy to remember. So you have Dharma Sutras, Shauta Sutra, Grihya Sutra, Brahma Sutra and all those things. Then you have Smritis, which are remembered wisdom, which are presented in a same Vedic content, presented in a poetic form. As I said, you have Yajnavalkya Smriti, Parasara Smriti, Manu Smriti, all those things. Bhagavad Gita is also a Smriti, although it is part of Itihasas, where you have all the Samanya Dharmas. Samanya Dharmas means general duties for a person, or Vishesha Dharmas. Vishesha Dharmas meaning every individual has got some. I've got a general duty and I've got a specific duty. For example, I got a general duty as a human being. Whatever is a general duty. Specific duty depending on the role that I am taking. So I might be a father or a husband or a son or a boss or a colleague or an employee or a neighbor. So each one of them has got specific duties. So those are called as Vishesha Dharma. And then there is also Apadharma. So duties in crisis. When there are crises, what are the duties for a person? That is also written in the Smritis. Of course, you have Bhashyams for that and all those things. Then Puranas. Puranas is basically to illustrate how the problems that are faced and how Dharma is upheld. Stories are given. Stories may be appearing fictitious, but it is still convey the eternal truths. Because if you read any of the Puranas, it is still relevant. We never get bored. Our Itihasas and Puranas, we never get bored. It is still relevant. Even today, so many people would love to read Amar Chitrakatha. All these, let's say the Western created characters, all these Marvel characters and all those characters, we get bored after some time. But all these Puranas and Itihasas, even this Panchatantras and all those things, we never get bored. It is still relevant. So those are Puranas, 18 Puranas, 18 Upa-Puranas. And then you had Itihasas, meaning thus it happened, Ramayana and Mahabharata, and finally Bhashyam. Bhashyam is all the commentaries. Shankara Bhashyam we say. Shankara Bhashyam is basically commentaries written by Shankara on various topics. So even when in the beginning when I chant, right? Sri Dakshinamurti Sudeshi Kendram Dvaipayanam Sutrakratam Munindram Sri Shankaram Bhashyakritam Yatindram Maddeshi Kanchapi Namami Vidya. So I'm just giving my respectful homage to Shankara, Adi Shankara, who has given these bhashyams based on which these classes are being conducted. So those are the Shastras. Any question on the Shastras before I move on to the next topic? So let me pick up from the chat box what are the questions there. To achieve Ganapata, should one go through Krama and Jata in that order? It is advisable. If you have to teach this to the next generation, if you are one of the persons who has to take it to the next generation, it is better to go through that Krama and Jata in that order. But although many people these days learn Ganapata directly, but the thing is, unless you probably know Krama and Jata and all the grammar and the rules of association and dissociation of words, because just like in Tamil and in Sanskritam, you have rules when two words come together and when words are being split. Unless you know that, you will not be able to do that. Otherwise, you will know Kramapa, Jatapada, but you will never be able to take it into the, you will not be able to apply that for all the text that you have studied. But generally speaking, in these people who do it properly with all this knowledge of phonetics, grammar, if they are being taught one particular paragraph of how a Gana has to be composed, they will be able to do it for the subsequent paragraphs on their own. Please name the best form and the book available which we should read. As I said, self-reading is not advised. But if you want to read self-reading, do go look for some commentaries which are based on Shankara Bhashyam. Do not try to read the Vedas or Sutras on your own directly, either in Sanskritam or in English. It will be very difficult, and we will not make any much headway in it. We will not get the required outcome, I would say. We will have a suboptimal outcome. Please let me know the mathematical set relation with Ganapada. I can give, it is long, I can send out as a text, and I can also give a link to it later on. We should not re-engineer them. I think you mean the whatever has been written in the Vedas, we should not re-engineer them. Yes, of course. The Vedas are eternal truth. We should not try to re-engineer them. We cannot say the Vedas are not relevant in today's terms. Vedas are ever relevant. The only thing is that we have probably made choices in terms of how we want to lead our life, but the Vedas are ever relevant, and there are people who still follow the Vedas in terms of how to construct or how to live their life. Yeah, the Sampradaya way of learning should not be re-engineered. Yes. So we should not try to re-engineer in terms of understanding or making our own spin on things. This is what probably it meant. Or we should not try to say it may not be relevant then, so we should not be, we should be looking at an alternate meaning for it now. So we should not have our own interpretations. That's right, Sundar. Any other questions on this? Because I don't want to start the new topic today. I would want to take the next topic, which is probably very important topic. The next topic, which is Varna Ashrama Dharma. What is Varnas? What are Ashramas? Is a very, sometimes very controversial topic. So I probably do that next week, and it will take a few classes to complete that. Did Itihasas, Puranas, Smritis and Bhashyas happen due to deficiencies in understanding of Vedas and Sutras? I wouldn't use the word deficiency. I would use to say the Vedas, not many people were qualified enough to understand the Vedas. Not many people have qualified enough to understand the Sutras. So the people who are qualified enough to understand that, they went in, understood and presented the same thing in a different form, which is the Smriti and the Bhashyas. So that's the reason why I wouldn't call that as deficiency. Yeah. Complexity, yes. Complexity could be of the Vedas, could be a better word. Yes. The fact that it is very complex, it's got, and it is all unorganized. Where can we start learning Shastras? And how much time will we be able to learn in this lifetime? We are learning Shastras right now. Whatever we are doing now as part of this 1 hour every week, we are learning what is said in the Shastras only. So if you are attending something like Bhagavad Gita class, if you are attending any scriptural discourse based on Itihasas or Puranas or anything, it is all considered to be doing Shastric learning. And as I said, the Shastric learning, if you want to really understand, you'll have to do it in a structured manner. And learning the Shastras also have to be structured. It cannot be piecemeal basis. So this introduction to Vedanta is also a structured way of saying, first of all, giving an end-to-end view of the entire Shastras. And then from there, you can actually start picking up the things that are probably more relevant given the time of your life, given where you are, whether you are a student, whether you are a householder, whether you are a retiree, or whether you are at even further away from retirement. I mean, depending on where you are in the stage of life, you can choose what to read, where to read, and how to read, or how to learn. Where does the Upanishads fit into this literature? Upanishads are nothing but Vedantas. When I say Vedanta, it refers to the Upanishads, and which means Upanishads are part of the Vedas. Vedas have got three parts. The Purva Kanda has got three parts: Samhita, Brahmana, and Aranyaka. Samhita literature, Brahmana literature, and Aranyaka literature. The Brahmana should not be confused with the Varna. Okay, it is not the same as the Kshatriya Brahmana Varna. Okay, so you got Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka, and then you have something called Upanishads, which is the fourth. So the Upanishads are called as Vedantas. So when we say Vedanta, it is Upanishads. Shankaracharya, Adi Shankara has written Bhashyas for 10 Upanishads. Previously there used to be 100 Upanishads. Now in prevalence is only about 12 or 13, of which Adi Shankara has given Bhashyas for 10 of it. Any other question? Somebody is typing. Okay, if there are no more questions, are Vedas unstructured? Are Vedas unstructured? Yes, in the form that it is not properly structured, because the same topic could be appearing in multiple places, or the same information could be split in many places, or there could be some seeming contradictions from what was said in one place and to what is being said in another place. So in that sense, the fact that it is distributed, the same information is available in different places within the Vedas, and there could be some seeming contradictions, not actual contradictions. Therefore, we can say that the Vedas are unstructured. In that context, in that sense, we can say Vedas are unstructured. Who is the authority preserving the wealth of Vedas in current times? Good question. You will get the answer in the next topic when we discuss the next topic. Maybe you can keep this question at the end of the next topic. You see if it has been answered. Otherwise, you can post the same question. Somebody else is typing, so I'm just waiting for. Has Vedas changed over time? No. The Vedas have been always the same. It has not changed at all. And the relevance of the Vedas has also not changed. However much we would like to believe, however much we would like to tell to ourselves that these are not relevant for today's times. That is something that we tell to ourselves, but it is not the case. The fundamentals of Vedas hasn't changed. Let me put this way. The fundamentals of what Vedas are trying to convey haven't changed at all. Okay? With that, we'll come to the end of the session. We'll take the other questions in the next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Swasti Prajabhyah Paripalayantam Nyayena Margena Mahim Mahishaha Go Brahmanebhyo Shubhamastu Nityam Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah.